Yeah, that's the single most important quality that a cabinet pick can have. You got to be able to trust them. And that's very obvious to Trump now after what he experienced in his first term. But Democrats are still going to resist this nomination anyway for reasons that they can't really articulate. They just know that it would be a disaster for them if an outsider took control of the Defense Department. That's why one of CNN's hosts tried to push back on Scott Jennings' argument for Hegseth last night on CNN. Let's watch that.
Anyone have confidence in the current leadership of the Pentagon and the way the defense situation has been operating for the last several years? I mean, from the Afghanistan pullout, which was an extreme debacle for which no one was held accountable. We've had spy balloons flying over the United States. We built a $300 million pier as a public relations stunt, which wound up killing an American service member. I'd say I've had just about enough of the so-called insiders running the Defense Department. I think we ought to give Pete Hegseth a chance
because he's got two insiders.
All the criticism of him is that he's not the expected Washington pick. And I'm just saying to you that the American people just voted against the expected Washington pick. So he's got 20 years in service, Afghanistan, Iraq, 2 Bronze Stars, Princeton, Harvard. Yeah, he's on TV, but so are the rest of us.
By the way, I
think he ought to be given a chance.
That list you just gave is really interesting because you highlighted a bunch of things that the civilian leadership of the country decided on. In the military, their job was just to execute.
Well, here we are back on Matt Walsh today, and as can be expected, Donald Trump's initial picks for various cabinet posts have been attracting a lot of attention, a lot of negative attention, a lot of heat from the swamp creatures and and their enablers in the mainstream media. So here we are, Matt Walsh is taking a look at a clip on CNN where this guy is defending Trump's pick of Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense. So, you know, I don't know anything about the guy, don't really care, but like this guy just said here, first of all, he seems okay, good enough to me, and, you know, he's got some useful qualifications, and also he is not a swamp creature, he's an outsider, which is good. That in itself is good. Now, that doesn't make him a good Secretary of Defense by definition, of course, but I think it's good to go for somebody who's not a swamp creature. And of course, this lady on the CNN panel is automatically just can't help but push back a bit and saying, well, you know, it's civilians who decide on policy. The military types, they just execute. Well, yeah, they execute, but they have to execute properly, don't they? You know, efficiently and in a professional manner, unlike what happened in the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
They actually.
How did it go?
I'm just saying.
How did it go?
In terms of the decision making, you're assigning decision making responsibility to the military over things that civilians are responsible for.
So you make a good point. The civilian leadership made decisions, and then the people they put in charge of the Pentagon carried it out, and it was all pretty much a disaster.
So for starters, it's pretty amusing for starters, as Jennings points out, for television pundits to attack Hegseth for being a TV host when they're all television personalities also. So either being on television makes you an idiot or it doesn't. And if it does, then all these people should quit their jobs now before CNN closes down and fires them anyway, which appears more likely to happen with each passing day. Then the anchor says that civilians give the orders in the military, which is obviously true, but it's the Pentagon, which is also run by civilians, that has the job of carrying out those orders. And as Jennings pointed out, the Pentagon has repeatedly failed to do its job. They were wrong about the spy balloon and what it was doing. They were wrong about the logistics of the Afghanistan pullout, which resulted in the deaths of American service members. Couldn't even build a pier properly. And so what exactly is the argument for keeping those kinds of people in control of the Defense Department? How could we possibly do any worse than they've been doing? That's a point that Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, just made on Fox News. He was asked whether he was worried about having the title of border czar, given that Kamala Harris has done everything she can to run away from that title. And here's how he responded.
If you like this kind of content, please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and keep making content for you. Now let's get back to the video.
You know, the last person who was border czar, she didn't want to be called border czar. You're proud of it, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to look like a genius, because when you follow failure, you can't help but succeed, right?
Yeah.
And look, to the American people, President Trump is going to secure this border. He's going to save American lives. He's going to, by securing the border, we're going to drop illegal alien crime, which is skyrocketing.
Yep.
Less people are going to die from fentanyl. Less children are going to be sex trafficked. Less women will be sex assaulted on the southern border. The criminal cartels will be put out of business by this president.
Go get him, Tom Homan. Appreciate it.
I think that's the right attitude. I'm going to look like a genius because when you follow up failure, you can't help but succeed.
Good point. Very good point.
And that is true. And also, it's all the more reason to go in there and make radical changes. Can't get any worse. And so go in there and make the changes. And whatever risks are involved in that, go, politically, take those risks. And that pretty much sums up the entire transition so far. We're so used to administration officials who lie to us, who try to use emotional blackmail and manipulation, that's pretty much impossible to be disappointed by the incoming Trump administration at this point. I mean, just by demonstrating that they don't care about the media's manipulation and false narratives, they're already well ahead of their predecessors. It's also clear that the federal bureaucracy, which functioned to undermine Trump at every possible opportunity the first time around, isn't going to exist in the same form the second time. So last night, Trump officially announced that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be running the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Trump said the goal of this new department, which actually is not going to be in the government, but it's going to be an independent, outside the government organization. But the goal will be to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies. He said they'll be done within 2 years, what he called the perfect gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. And this is good because the task of, as he says, dismantling government bureaucracy should be the number one focus of Trump's second term. I mean, because nothing else can be done unless that is done first. And Elon Musk is just the guy to do it. He showed up to Twitter and immediately axed 80% of the staff. And of course, as we remember, everybody in the media said it would destroy the company. They said the whole site would crash and burn and be forgotten. And yet here we are, 2 years later, place is running better than ever. Now, the problem in the federal government is like what the problem was in Twitter, except multiplied by, about a factor of, let's say, 1 million. Unlike every other company on the planet, the federal government doesn't undergo mass layoffs. It just grows and grows year after year, siphons more and more money from taxpayers without any accountability. These bureaucrats call themselves public servants, but really the public is serving them. We're the ones who go to work every day to pay their salaries. And what exactly do they do for us? Do we really need these people to spend tens of thousands of dollars on gender equity in places like Honduras? Do we need them to develop new bat coronaviruses in secret labs in Wuhan? Do we need them to use our money to subsidize some of the most useless college degrees in existence? Do we need them to conduct fraudulent criminal trials of the leading presidential candidate? Do we need them to issue insane new regulations, in the name of saving the environment, like banning the sale of gas-powered vehicles or gas stoves or plastic straws or whatever else? Of course we don't. We've never needed any of that. What we have needed for a long time now is for the government to get out of the way of human progress. They need to stop spending and printing money as if it's endless. They need to do what every American in the private sector has to do, which is justify their salaries. They need to explain how exactly they're serving the public instead of the...
Well, Matt Walsh makes a number of good points here. I'm all for slashing government bureaucracy, shrinking it down, streamlining it, like shrinking it down by a factor of 100 at least, probably. Slashing all of these useless programs, the useless bureaucracy, just trimming up the fat, and there is a lot of fat. Absolutely. It's like the federal government has metastasized over the decades into a monstrosity. Now, I don't know. Let me know what you think. I'm not some sort of libertarian. Absolutely not. There's always going to be a government. There's a role for the federal government. Absolutely. And there's a role for regulation too. The reason we have regulatory bodies is because private sector types or people have just, have done nasty things. They've dumped polluting chemicals into the environment. They've, done all sorts of things. So I understand the need for regulation. Absolutely. Now, you could say, well, should these things, what should be regulated nationally, what should be regulated at state level? You can argue about that. But the fact is, I don't think anyone in good faith can argue that all the government departments we have now and all the programs and all the agencies are needed. They're certainly not. There's just so much nonsense. So anyway, I'm glad to see that the swamp creatures are seething at Trump's early picks. I'm glad to see that he just doesn't seem to give a damn, which is good, because he made a lot of mistakes in his first term for sure. So let's hope he keeps making good picks. Let's hope that this Department of Government Efficiency, the DOGE, actually does something, is actually able to slash and burn its way through government bureaucracy. And let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'd be interested to hear. In the meantime, I wish somebody would do it in my country where I live, in my as yet unnamed Western European country. I mean, it's a much, much smaller country than the United States, as all European countries are. But it has its fair share of excessive bureaucracy, overreach, and all that kind of thing. So let me know what you think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me grow the channel and continue making content for you.